covers how long answer questions can be answered within the higher human and higher biology courses. It's something that you may have come across in some of the National 5 past papers, but it's in every single higher paper at least once, so it's a technique that we wanted to teach you, specifically how these long answer questions can be planned, carried out, and you can gain the maximum number of marks. So the general 4-point strategy that I would use is MOS. So marks, annotate, write, and second. And you can see two different examples of essays from past papers. So in humans, describe how the autonomic nervous system increases the heart rate. You can see beside it says 3 marks. And down here, it's a slightly different format. Question 12, answer either A or B in the space below. Label diagrams may be used where appropriate. We'll come back to that. And then it's got options A or B. You can either describe the transmission of a nerve impulse across the synapse for 9 marks, or explain the features of memory under the headings short-term memory and long-term memory. 9-mark questions is something that you definitely won't have come across at National 5, so they can be quite scary until we really see how easy they are to answer. So if we move through MOS, marks. So how many marks is it worth? In section 2 of the paper, certainly since last year, you have something like 1.48 minutes per mark for section 2. Oddly, in section 1, you have 1.6 minutes per mark. So in this case, we know it's worth 9 marks. So 9 times 1.5 gives you, it's good maths, about 12 minutes to do the question. So you have about 12 minutes from the point you get to this question to go through MOS and complete the question. So you would answer either question A or B in the space below. So the first thing I would do is I would annotate the question. I would make notes about what you want to cover in each of the sections using the headings provided. So in some questions, they will give you the headings. So they will say, explain memory under the following headings. That's really a gift because they break that 9-mark question down into 2 sections, one for 4 marks, one for 5. It might be a 3-marker and a 6. You might have a 10-mark essay where it's only a 2 and 8. They can break it down however they want. But you know that you need at least 4 marks points for short-term memory. So what I would do is either with lines or here I've color-coded it. Short-term memory, you might think, right, well, I really want to cover sensory memory, even if it's not quite under short-term memory. I want to cover the working memory. I want to talk about the capacity, so it's very limited here. And while I'm thinking of that, I'll point out that it's very large here. The duration short, whereas long-term memory is long. What other words do I remember? I remember the word chunking, so I'll make sure to put that in. Serial position effect, and just get all the words down that you can. This means that when you get to the next stage, the writing stage of MOS, then you know exactly what you're going to put in and you're not just frantically scribbling. Similarly, for long-term memory, we've got the capacity, contextual cues, shallow and deep encoding, and duration. These are just some of the things we've picked. So the W in MOS is to write. So use your plan that you've just written. This will be on the same bit of paper quite often. The essay questions, which is another term for these, they have their own page. So you'll have annotated at the top of the page, and then you will, underneath that, have a lovely blank space to use. So you can keep referring to your plan because it should probably be on the same bit of paper as your actual write-up. Use as much information as you can. So if you have written out these key terms, think, right, well, I'm going to talk about working memory. What is everything I know about the working memory? Diagrams don't always get you marks. In some questions it will say, use labeled diagrams if appropriate, and that's absolutely fine. It tends to be the rule that if you only put diagrams in, you don't tend to get a lot of marks. But if you think, oh, well, I've really bungled my explanation of synaptic transport and neurotransmitter reuptake, I'll put a diagram in. Quite often that gives the examiner a little bit of confidence that you did actually understand it, and they can give you those marks. And bullet pointing is fine as long as it's bullet pointing in full sentences, which I always think kind of reduces any point in using the bullet points. It does allow you to separate your points out across the page and make them a little bit neater, but you still need to write them in full sentences with capital letters, punctuation, and full stops and commas. So if it helps you, that's fine, but you won't get points for just, for example, bullet pointing what you did in your plan. And I should say number 4, the S in MOS is kind of a separate thing. We've talked about the fact that you would have 13.5 minutes in this case to do the question. If you are at the end of the paper, so if this was question 14 of a 14 question paper and you've got 20 minutes left, have a go at the other question. So if you've done the B essay, have a go at the A essay. What that means is that both essays are marked and the higher mark is given. So even if you think you've absolutely knocked that B essay out of the park, it's worth just writing down what you can for the other essay. It shows the examiner what you know, and it means that, hey, you might have got 8 out of 9 for the B essay, but you might end up with 9 out of 9 for your second essay. So if you have time, do go back and do the other essay. Hopefully that makes sense. MOS is quite a good method to use for this. There are others. So how many marks is it worth? Can I annotate it and write down what I think for each section? Writing out from your plan, and then if you have time, doing the second essay. I'd probably advise, we'll go through marking scheme. I'd probably advise you have a go at some of these practice questions. So discuss encoding, storage, and retrieval of information in memory, and then your teacher would post another PowerPoint or document with the answers to these questions. In humans, describe how the autonomic nervous system increases the heart rate. So we've got a 9 marker, which you can think, how would I split this into maybe 2 to 3 sections? And you've got a 3 marker here. A lot of people don't go through the full MOS technique for 3-mark questions, but if you have absolutely no idea how to answer this question, it does sometimes give you a little second to breathe. You think, well, I'm only supposed to spend about 4 minutes on this question. I'll spend a minute just annotating, working out how long I've got, how long do I have left of the exam, writing my answer out, and then thinking, right, well, how can I reflect on that? I thought it was important to put an example of a marking scheme into the PowerPoint. So I've deliberately chosen one that's not one of the examples. So describe the structure and structure of DNA and the process of DNA replication. So this is something we haven't necessarily covered yet. So what the person who's answered this in the marking scheme has done is they've split it into a structure and into a process. So you can actually access all 9 marks in either section. So there's 7 possible marks available for structure, and there's 5 possible marks available for replication. So you could get 7 from A and 2 from B, the second section, and get the marks, or you could get 5 from here and 4 from there and get the marks, or a kind of a jumble between. In the additional guidance, it tells the marker what they are and are not allowed to give leniency for. So, for example, if here, when you're naming the DNA bases, instead of saying cytosine to guanine, if you said C to G, this says they probably should have used the full names, but for this particular mark, don't worry about it. For number 3, you see there's not a little kind of additional guidance for that. So if you name the 4 bases and don't spell them correctly or only write A, T, C, and G, then you won't get the mark. Sometimes there's a little note that says that even though there are 7 options here, you can only get a maximum of, say, 4 marks. And that's to really encourage you to use the breadth of the question to answer it properly. Hopefully that has made some kind of sense. If there's any problems with that, please ask your teacher for guidance.